Mobile World Congress is here, and along with that comes Samsung's new Galaxy S9 for Tech Republic and ZDNet. I'm Dan Patterson with Larry Dignan and Jason Hiner. Jason, what does this device look like? How is it spec'd out?
Yeah, so the Galaxy S9 and the S9 Plus are very, very similar devices. These are very incremental, like a lot of what we've seen from most phone makers. There are a few notable things to keep an eye on as you're looking at this. The S9 Plus has dual cameras, which we're seeing in the first time in the Galaxy line. Other than the Note had the dual cameras. The S9, the standard model, doesn't. The Plus does. As Larry and I've talked about in previous videos, there's starting to be some real confusion potentially between the Note 8 and the S9 Plus. So which one is the flagship? You can see our preview of the S9 for more on that. This device has some slimmer bezels, slightly 1.2 millimeters have been removed. It's the fingerprint scanner has been moved from the side of the camera, which is really awkward on the S8. And even the Note to the middle in the center, which is much more natural for your fingerprint. The display's 15% brighter. It now has stereo sound, so externally, the top speaker, which you use for listen to calls, now works also as a dual speaker when you're just listening to sound on the device. So that's a nice improvement. It has a face unlock feature. So here they've kind of aped Apple a little bit. They're using the sort of facial scan of something they've done for a while in some different ways. They've done some iris scanning. Android itself tried to do some facial scanning with mixed results. And so Samsung has doubled down on that to kind of match the iPhone 10. And they also do some animojis to kind of do some same, again, trying to sort of follow Apple's lead on this stuff. Our colleagues at CNET have looked at this, and obviously, Dan, you got an early look at the device. We've seen some mixed results on this feature, so that's kind of TBD. But there are some nice incremental improvements on this device. It has the faster processor, so the US version will have the Qualcomm Snapdragon 845, which is a beast. It's kind of a laptop capable kind of processor, quad core. And then it also has the Exynos. The international versions use Samsung's own Exynos processor, which is actually, from what we're hearing and from some of the early tests, is even faster. But they have a deal with Qualcomm, so they couldn't put that processor in in the US version. So that's a little bit of a kind of a strange thing. They couldn't really put their best processor in all of the devices. But either way, you're not going to be hurting for speed with this device. It follows this laptop level performance that we're getting out of these devices now. We saw the same thing with iPhone 8 and the iPhone 10, as well as the Note 8. And then it has one more thing that's pretty interesting, the Samsung DeX, if you remember. And Larry can talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, what's interesting about the launch in general, for me at least, from a business perspective, is it came out with this thing called the DeX Pad. If you remember last year, Samsung launched this DeX thing, which takes on a concept where you basically plug this into the phone. You plug this into your monitor, your keyboard, your Ethernet, and the phone basically is a CPU. It's a computer, and that worked out kind of. It works out in practice. It's a nice thin terminal. I mean, it worked well for me, but the reality was, this is the old DeX Pad, right? So it's kind of like a big hockey puck, almost like it's huge. And what happened to me in practice is once I do all this and bring the cords and everything, I said, screw it. I'll just take my damn laptop. So what's interesting about now, Samsung came out with the DeX Pad, which is basically flat, and it'll use your phone as sort of a touchpad. So that streamlines things. It probably makes it easier to carry around in your backpack and on the plane and everything else. Will this take off? I don't know. I mean, I've been a fan of the DeX idea for kind of forever. I mean, Jason remembers we played
Yeah.
around with this Motorola thing that had Firefox. And
Yep.
it was kind of cool, but no one used it. Maybe us. That was probably it. Maybe, and a few people at Motorola. So it was like probably 5 of us.
Palmfolio. Remember Palm had this idea way back when too.
Yeah, this idea's been around for a while. I mean, and so what I dig about the S9 launch and the DexPad is that, you know, Samsung has a way of taking a technology that's not quite there yet and sticking with it. Remember, we were all laughing at phablets. I mean, we were all, you know, everybody's walking around with a cinder block on their ear, right? But turns out everybody wants a phablet for the most part, right? Everybody wants a bigger screen. So I think the Dex could, you know, do that. And I think the DexPad, while it's not fully baked yet in terms of a technology where an enterprise will adopt it, I think it's a step in the right direction. I mean, using your phone as a touchpad has its appeal. And, you know, I think it's one of the more interesting things they announced, and we'll just see where it goes over time. I'm not seeing mass adoption. But it's definitely a nice evolutionary step from what they had last year with Dex.
From a business perspective too, it could be interesting, right? From an enterprise, because especially with Samsung and with Samsung Knox, you can lock down that business phone pretty well, and you can separate personal data from company data, and that device is pretty enterprise hardened, the Samsung phone. So if you have the Samsung phone and you deploy a DexPad, right, if you're an enterprise, you only have one device to lock down instead of 2. And that DexPad essentially is the shell for, for your device that already has your connections to all your corporate data, your corporate apps. And so, yeah, it could be interesting. It's probably the most interesting thing in this launch, especially for businesses and professionals.